Hello and welcome to Non-Dual Therapy. In this video, I will be discussing a 20 milligram 5-MeO malt experience that I had recently. Now, just to put this in perspective, this experience was the equivalent of me smoking 5-MeO DMT at the peak of an LSD experience. So it was a big one. So let's just get right into it. So I had a comment on one of my videos saying to use ginger. Ginger helps with an upset stomach. With plugging, the only time it works really well is if I just fast the entire day. But I don't do that all the time. So, and I usually do my medicine at nighttime. So I just eat like breakfast or lunch, and I'm usually left feeling like a little bit nauseous. Maybe it comes on at the beginning, maybe it comes on in the middle of the experience. I've had both of those. So this time I just ate raw ginger. I cut up a little bit of ginger. I don't know how much, but just a little bit. And I just swallowed it whole. I don't really care for chewing on it, but I just swallowed it whole. That actually gave me a little bit of nausea. The chunks were too big, but anyway, I drank a ton of water to help get it down. And I did this 30 minutes prior to taking the medicine. And that was very lovely. Yeah, it wasn't really nausea. It was just the chunks were a little bit too big and I swallowed them whole. And it was just giving me this weird feeling. But it went away pretty quickly. And I didn't have any nausea the entire trip. So I took my medicine, 20 milligrams. I plugged it and I went and laid down. Man, within a couple minutes, I could tell it was going to be a very big experience. I needed to use the washroom, and I was hoping I could go before the medicine really kicked in, because I drank a ton of water trying to get this ginger down. So I went to the washroom, and as I was going to the washroom, as I was walking to the washroom, I could just see tracers behind my hands, really heavy tracers. And this was not even 5 minutes in. And so I went, I did my thing, and then I went and laid down, and it was on, full on intensity, full on just it's revving up to God mode, even though it feels like it's already in God mode, but it keeps getting more and more powerful. So it was 15 minutes of rolling on my back and rolling on my hands. And my hands are moving in symmetry and doing all these movements. And as that's happening, everything is fractaling out. And I can still see the room that I'm in. I can still tell what's happening. However, everything's kind of broken apart with fractals. It's either broken apart or it's holding it together. I don't know, but it looked all fractaled out. And my hands were really, the tracers behind my hands were incredible. Probably the most tracers I've ever had on any psychedelic. And just the intensity. I just remember it being so intense. So this is where things got even more crazy. I did my breathing, and I was a little hesitant. There was resistance at the beginning because it was already crazy powerful. But I did one round of breathing. I do 30 breaths, and then I do the big exhale, then the big inhale. And as I inhaled, the energy was building up, but I didn't really realize it until it reached a climax where it was time to exhale. But the exhale, usually I push everything out, and it didn't matter. Nothing mattered. It was all infinite. It was all God. It was all one. Absolutely nothing mattered. It didn't matter if I did the breathing anymore. It was my energy, it could have been Kundalini. I don't know, but the energy in my system was at its max. It was completely at its peak. And I exhaled, but it was I had no control over it anymore. It was just the flow of the medicine had completely taken over. So I exhaled calmly and just normally. But as I was breathing, this is I've only had this type of breakthrough once. And that was when I did 5-MeO at the peak of an LSD experience. That was the very first time I ever broke through that I actually remembered. And that was when I experienced pure nothingness as a dark void, just blackness, nothingness, whatever you want to call it. It's void of any sense of anything. The self is gone, the body's gone, the three-dimensional reality's gone. It's not even black or dark, it's just nothing. So that's what I experienced on that trip. Now, leading up to that experience, the breakthrough that was happening was this rapid disintegration of everything I've known my entire life. And it got to the point where it happened so fast, it's hard to tell, but it seemed like it was a yin-yang symbol, but it was kind of in this square shape, but it was very contrast black and white. And those two were the last bit of duality that I could hold on to before it just ripped apart. And when it ripped apart, then I found myself back in the room again with the memory of that happening. But at this point, my energy is like peaked. Like it's as powerful that I've ever experienced in my entire life. It was that high. Now, what proceeded after that? It was probably the breakdown of one of my strongest attachments that I've had, that I've come to realize that I've had over this entire experience. So when I met my wife, we were kids. We were both teenagers, fell in love, and we've been best friends pretty much ever since. We've, traveled the world together. We've found psychedelics together. We bought properties together. We had kids together. We've just grown up and we've matured together. Now, through that experience, we both brought a lot of unconscious behaviors to the relationship. And now we did experiment with psychedelics a lot, and I strongly attest that is why we have such a strong foundation, as we really work together in that. But there's a lot of patterns in there, a lot of unconscious patterns that we kind of just put up with each other. And we're both playing egoic games with each other. So then everything's going along kind of in a flowing fashion, kind of, even though it's, we have good days and bad days like any marriage. But then I come along and I discover the path. And then I start taking psychedelics and meditating, and I start disrupting those behavior patterns that we've built together. And it's been challenging. There's no doubt about it. It has been challenging. From my point of view, it's been challenging. I'm sure it's been challenging for her. I don't want to speak for her, but I'm guessing it is. And what's been really challenging is coming down here, having a big psychedelic experience. I'm God, I'm everything. I am not Josh. I'm not who I thought I was. I am the universe. I have these experiences repeatedly over and over and over again. And then I go back upstairs, and then I'm greeted with my daughter, "Oh, daddy, dada," and my son, "Dada, daddy," and my wife calls me husband and honey and all these stuff. And it's like, it's so hard to break through that with the constant reminder of who I thought I was. I'm not complaining about it because it's been awesome. It really has. But at the same time, it's been difficult. Now, back to my experience. I could see my wife in my experience. I could see her. And I was building up all the things that I've regretted. I've regretted saying, I've regretted doing, I'm ashamed of. All the times I've been mean to her, or just the things I regret, I just bundled them up into this little package. And as this was happening, my hands are up in the air, and I'm, doing these symmetrical movements. But as I'm building this package up, my hands start getting heavier and heavier and heavier, and they fall to my side, and they fall to my side, and my chest is completely exposed, and I can feel that package is it's being taken, and it's being engulfed by my heart, the center of my body, the center of my chest. And all those things that I regret and that I'm ashamed of, I just love them. I love them like I've never loved anything. It was just like in that moment, all the things that I think I've done wrong, I love them because they are all me. And by doing that, there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to regret. There's absolutely nothing wrong. I just fully accepted it, and I surrendered to it, and I loved it. And as I did that, I could see my wife, and I fully engulfed her, or my concept of her, and I became her. And then I said, or I don't think I said it, I thought it. I thought, I am Carmen. That's her name, Carmen. I am Carmen. And I tell you, when I thought I am Carmen, that was more clear than any time I've ever thought or said I am Josh in my entire life. It was so peaceful and perfect, and it was just completely just perfection. And I am Carmen. I am Carmen. So this attachment that I've had to my wife for my entire adult life, pretty much, it's been really, while starting the path, I realized early on that I had that attachment. So I had a trip report in God's waiting room, I believe I called it, where I smoked 5-MeO, and then I jumped out of my bed, and I was kind of pacing around my bedroom, and it kind of turned into God's waiting room as reality is like deconstructing, and all my patterns and illusions are like flying away. But the very last thing that I was holding on to was my wife. And then I felt like I could hold on to her, and then I just let her go, and she flew away. And then I became God in that experience. But that was like the wake-up call that like getting over my attachment to my wife is going to be incredibly challenging. And I couldn't tell you how many times I've cried on psychedelics with her as like the focal point. But now, after that experience, fuck, I feel so free. I feel incredibly free. We had a date night after the experience that was lined up for the last couple of weeks, I guess. And man, it was just so nice. It was nice and easy going. And oh my goodness. Yeah, it's just so good. So then I smoked weed after the experience. So about 4 or 5 days later, I smoked some weed to see if there's anything to integrate, with the intention of integrating from my last 5-MeO malt experience, this absorbing my wife and breaking down my attachment to my wife. And there was barely anything there. Like maybe I left enough time, and also not only did I leave enough time in between, but I also actually processed a lot of it on the 5-MeO malt. So one thing that I've noticed is that my 18 milligram dose of 5-MeO malt, I was in and out of non-duality a lot, but I didn't really have any context. It wasn't really processing anything. It was more like making space. So that's the way I look at it. And then I smoked some weed, and that was where I got to explore the space that I created. And I got to integrate those experiences because I didn't really have any big understandings on the 5-MeO malt. It was more just everything is one, and then I'm back, and then everything is one, and then I'm back. But there's no like in between. And yes, that's the ultimate truth, but there was like what I experienced was how I'm manifesting and imagining reality itself. So with this experience, it was more just one big breakthrough, where instead of in and out of non-duality many times, and they're really easy to let go, and everything's one, and then it's not, and it's one. It was just like this like giant eruption. I did a lot of medicine. I also did my breathing, which completely like catapulted me. It gave me that extra boost that I needed to get through a big block that I had. Like after, I still want to be with my wife. There's no, you can call it attachment, but I don't know. I feel like free. Like I've like broken through that. I've let it go. I've absorbed her, and just feels great. It feels fantastic because I've been working toward that for a long time. And I've always thought that that is my biggest attachment outside of like the actual self, the Josh character wanting to live. That's it for now. Thank you for watching. If you found value in this video and you've made it this far, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.